The arrogant armada. The Zelkari Empire had conquered 17 star systems without losing a single capital ship. Their crystalline vessels, grown rather than built, were considered the pinnacle of military engineering throughout the known galaxy. Each ship pulsed with bioluminescent energy, shields that adapted to any weapon frequency, and armor that could regenerate from damage within minutes. They had never met an enemy they couldn't overwhelm through sheer technological superiority. Admiral Krex Theta stood on the command platform of his flagship, the Eternal Supremacy, watching his fleet of 42 warships emerge from quantum space above the disputed Nexus mining station. His 6 eyes, arranged in perfect symmetry around his elongated skull, surveyed the tactical display with satisfaction. The station hung in the void between 2 binary stars, its precious trilithium mines worth more than entire planetary systems. The Zelkari had claimed it by right of conquest, but these new arrivals, these humans, apparently disagreed. The tactical officer's tentacles danced across the bio-neural interface, bringing up the enemy force composition. Krex Theta's mandibles clicked in amusement. 1 ship. The humans had sent 1 ship to challenge his entire armada. The vessel appeared crude by galactic standards, all harsh angles and exposed weapon ports, painted in a matte black that seemed to absorb light. It measured barely 400 meters, tiny compared to his 3-kilometer flagship. The designation painted on its hull read, UES Wolverine in simple white letters. Supreme Admiral, his communications specialist transmitted through harmonized thought waves. The human vessel is requesting communication. Krex Theta settled into his command throne, his translucent skin shifting to display patterns of supreme confidence. Display their representative. Let us see what manner of fool challenges the Zelkari Empire. The holographic projector shimmered to life, revealing a human male with graying hair and hard eyes. He wore a simple gray uniform devoid of the elaborate decorations favored by most galactic military forces. The name tag read, Admiral Chen. Zelkari Fleet. The human spoke in accented galactic standard, his voice carrying no trace of fear. This is Admiral Marcus Chen of the United Earthship Wolverine. You are trespassing in human-claimed space. You have 10 minutes to begin withdrawal procedures, or we will interpret your presence as an act of war. The bridge erupted in harmonious laughter. The crew's synchronized amusement creating a symphony of condescension. Krex Theta's skin patterns shifted to amused gold. Human, do you comprehend the situation? You face 42 ships of the line. Your single vessel, primitive as it appears, cannot hope to survive even our opening salvo. Surrender now, and we may allow your species to serve the Empire. Admiral Chen's expression didn't change. 9 minutes, 30 seconds. The connection terminated. Krex Theta's amusement curdled into rage, his skin flashing angry crimson. No one dismissed the Zelkari. No one. All ships assume attack formation Omega. Let us teach these primitives the price of arrogance. The fleet moved with practiced precision, spreading into a 3-dimensional sphere around the human vessel, each ship's weapons charging to full capacity. The Wolverine hung motionless in space, making no attempt to flee or maneuver. Its reactor signature barely registered on their sensors, as if the ship were running on minimal power. Supreme Admiral, the tactical officer reported, the human vessel's shields are. We cannot detect any shields. They appear to be completely undefended. Primitive fools, Krex Theta muttered. They probably exhausted their resources building that 1 ship and couldn't afford proper shielding. All ships, prepare to fire on my command. 5 minutes passed. Then 7. At 8 minutes, something changed. The Wolverine's reactor signature suddenly spiked to levels that made the Zelkari sensors scream warnings. Along its hull, panels slid open, revealing weapon systems unlike anything in the Zelkari database. Not the elegant energy weapons favored by advanced civilizations, but brutal kinetic weapons, missiles tubes, and what appeared to be primitive projectile launchers. Supreme Admiral, the science officer's thoughts carried confusion. Those weapons, they're using chemical propellants and electromagnetic acceleration, technology we abandoned millennia ago as inefficient. Before Krex Theta could respond, Admiral Shen's voice crackled across all communication channels. 10 minutes have elapsed. Weapons free. The Wolverine moved. The human ship accelerated at a rate that should have liquefied its crew, pulling 37 gravities in a sudden burst that took it directly toward the nearest Zelkari destroyer. As it moved, it fired. Not the sustained beams or plasma bolts the galaxy had grown accustomed to, but a devastating barrage of different weapon systems, all firing simultaneously. Kinetic rounds, simple chunks of tungsten accelerated to 20% the speed of light, smashed into the destroyer's adaptive shields. The shields tried to frequency shift to compensate, but kinetic weapons had no frequency. They were pure mass and velocity, and the shields, designed for energy weapons, buckled and failed in seconds. The tungsten rounds punched through the crystalline hull like paper, and the destroyer imploded. Missiles followed, hundreds of them, each one taking erratic, unpredictable paths toward their targets. The Zelkari point defense systems, calibrated for the predictable trajectories of plasma torpedoes, couldn't track them all. When the missiles reached their targets, they didn't explode with clean antimatter annihilation. They detonated with nuclear fire, dirty and primitive and absolutely devastating. The electromagnetic pulses fried delicate bioneural circuits, leaving ships blind and helpless. But the worst was yet to come. The Wolverine deployed clouds of tiny objects, each no bigger than a grain of sand. Railgun rounds had accelerated them to incredible velocities, and they spread through the battlefield like a lethal storm. Moving at relativistic speeds, even these tiny projectiles carried tremendous kinetic energy. They punched through hulls, destroyed sensor arrays, and turned the space around the human ship into a lethal kill zone. "Return fire!" Krex Theta screamed, his organized thoughts devolving into chaos. "All ships, return fire!" The Zelkari fleet responded with their full might. Quantum phase beams that could destabilize matter at the subatomic level lanced toward the Wolverine. Antimatter torpedoes tracked the human vessel. Gravity weapons that could crush a moon focused on that single, defiant ship. The Wolverine's response was unlike anything they expected. Instead of raising shields, it deployed ablative armor panels that ejected from its hull in layers. Each panel absorbed tremendous damage before vaporizing, but new panels immediately took their place. The ship carried thousands of them, each one buying precious seconds of survival. And while the Zelkari focused on trying to kill this one impossible ship, they didn't notice the smaller objects the Wolverine had deployed. Fighter craft, barely 10 meters long, painted the same light-absorbing black as their mothership. They'd been drifting, powered down, invisible to sensors. Now they came alive. 24 human fighters descended on the Zelkari fleet from multiple vectors. They were impossibly fast, pulling maneuvers that should have killed their pilots instantly. Later analysis would reveal that the fighters were unmanned, drones controlled by artificial intelligences with reaction times measured in nanoseconds. They targeted weak points with surgical precision, sensor arrays, weapon ports, engine manifolds. The pride of the Zelkari Empire, the dreadnought Infinite Glory, tried to retreat. Its captain diverted all power to engines, attempting to reach minimum safe distance for a quantum jump. 3 human drones pursued it, firing streams of hypervelocity projectiles that carved through its regenerating armor faster than it could heal. They targeted the quantum drive specifically, and when it breached, the resulting explosion was visible from 3 star systems away. In 12 minutes, the Zelkari had lost 18 ships. This is impossible. Krex Theta's thoughts were jagged with panic. They're using primitive weapons, ancient technology. How are they doing this? His science officer, bleeding from a console explosion, managed to respond. "Supreme Admiral, their weapons may be primitive in concept, but their execution is not. The velocities they're achieving, the precision of their targeting, the coordination of their attacks. They've perfected the art of kinetic warfare beyond anything we imagined possible." The Wolverine had taken damage. Several of its weapon ports were melted slag, and hull breaches vented atmosphere in multiple sections. But it kept fighting with a mechanical determination that terrified the Zelkari. When one weapon system was destroyed, another took its place. When one section was breached, it was sealed off and the ship continued functioning. And then the Wolverine did something that would haunt Zelkari military doctrine for generations. It accelerated directly toward the Eternal Supremacy, Krexa Theta's flagship. Not firing, not evading, just building velocity. They're going to ram us. The tactical officer's thoughts were tinged with disbelief. Supreme Admiral, they're going to use their ship as a weapon. All power to shields, evasive maneuvers. Krexa Theta's patterns had turned pure white with terror. But the Wolverine had a different plan. At the last possible second, it released its entire remaining payload of kinetic rounds. Thousands of tungsten rods accelerated to maximum velocity, followed immediately by every remaining missile and drone. Then it veered off, missing the flagship by mere meters. The barrage hit the Eternal Supremacy with the force of a small moon impact. Shields designed to adapt to energy frequencies couldn't comprehend the sheer kinetic brutality. The flagship's 3-kilometer bulk crumpled like aluminum foil, its biocrystalline structure shattering into a million glittering fragments. Admiral Chen's face appeared on every surviving Zelkari ship simultaneously. His expression remained as calm as it had been at the beginning. Remaining Zelkari vessels, you have 60 seconds to surrender unconditionally. This is your only warning. The reckoning and revelation. The Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council had never hosted an emergency session of such magnitude. Representatives from 93 civilized species packed the amphitheater, their diverse forms creating a cacophony of biological diversity. At the center of it all, a holographic replay showed the destruction of the Zelkari fleet in a horrifying detail. Counselor Vexara of the Etherian Collective, a species of pure energy beings who had evolved beyond physical violence eons ago, pulsed with distressed frequencies. 23 ships destroyed. 19 surrendered. Over 12,000 Zelkari dead. This was not warfare as we understand it. This was systematic annihilation. The Zelkari representative, Sub-Admiral Krenvar, survivor of the battle, stood in the testimony circle. His crystalline form had lost its luster. Patterns of trauma permanently etched into his being. The humans didn't fight like civilized beings. They didn't offer quarter. They didn't follow the accords of honorable combat. They just destroyed us. Perhaps, a new voice interjected, it's time we understood exactly who these humans are. All attention turned to Professor Zixa Theta, the Council's chief xenobiologist, whose species had spent the last cycle intensively studying humanity since their first contact. The elderly being's forearms manipulated a complex holographic display, bringing up images of Earth. Honored representatives, Zixa Theta began, what you're about to learn may fundamentally challenge your understanding of sapient development. Humans come from a Class 12 death world. Gasps echoed through the assembly. Class 12 was theoretical. No one believed intelligent life could evolve on such a hostile planet. Earth, Zixa Theta continued, experiences constant tectonic activity, creating earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. Its weather patterns include hurricanes that can level cities, tornadoes that can lift ground vehicles, and temperatures that vary by over 100 degrees. The planet's surface is 70% covered by water, filled with predators that have remained unchanged for millions of years because they are already perfect killing machines. Images flashed across the display. Massive sharks, venomous snakes, pack-hunting wolves, microscopic viruses that could destroy entire populations. The assembly watched in horrified fascination. But the most significant factor, Zixa Theta's voice dropped, is that humans evolved alongside competitors just as intelligent and dangerous as themselves. For most of their evolution, multiple hominid species competed for resources. Humans survived not by being the strongest or fastest, but by being the most ruthlessly efficient at warfare. The display showed archaeological evidence, ancient battlefields, weapon development spanning millennia, fortifications that grew ever more complex. Humans have been in a state of constant warfare for their entire recorded history. They've developed weapons specifically designed to counter other humans. They've turned killing their own species into a science. Counselor Vexara pulsed urgently. Surely as they developed technology, they moved past such primitive behaviors. No. Zixa Theta's response silenced the hall. They got better at it. When humans developed nuclear fission, their first application wasn't power generation. It was weapons. They created bombs that could destroy entire cities and built enough of them to render their planet uninhabitable several times over. They call this deterrence. The display showed images that made several representatives physically ill. Mushroom clouds rising over cities, radiation burns, genetic damage passed through generations. They used these weapons on themselves twice, then built thousands more. Sub-Admiral Krenvar's pattern shifted to understanding horror. Their ship, the Wolverine, those weren't primitive weapons. They were weapons perfected through millions of years of killing each other. Precisely, Zixatheta confirmed. What we call primitive kinetic weapons, they've refined to an art form. They've calculated exactly how fast a piece of metal needs to travel to penetrate any armor. They've developed chemical explosives that can function in any environment. Their nuclear weapons, which we abandoned as too unstable, they've miniaturized and made reliable. Every human military technology is designed with one principle: simple, brutal efficiency. A new figure entered the assembly, causing another wave of shocked reactions. Admiral Marcus Chen, the human commander from the battle, walked calmly to the center of the floor. He'd been invited to testify, but his presence still created palpable tension. "Honored Council," Chen began, his voice carrying across the silent assembly. "I've been asked to explain human military doctrine. It's quite simple. We assume our enemy wants to completely destroy us because that's what humans have always done to each other. We don't fight to establish dominance or settle disputes. We fight to survive." Counselor Vixara focused on the human. "Your actions were barbaric. You destroyed ships attempting to retreat. You showed no mercy." Chen's expression remained neutral. "With respect, Counselor, those ships were regrouping, not retreating. In human warfare, allowing an enemy to regroup is how you lose wars. We learned that lesson fighting ourselves for 10,000 years. But the violence," another representative interjected, "the complete destruction. It's unprecedented in civilized warfare." "Is it?" Chen asked. "How many species here achieved spaceflight only after unifying their planet through conquest? How many had to defeat competing predators to become dominant? You call us violent, but we're simply honest about it. Every species that sits in this council got here by being the most effective killer on their planet. The difference is on Earth we had to keep proving it every single day." The assembly fell silent. The truth was uncomfortable but undeniable. Professor Zixatheta resumed his presentation. "There's something else you need to understand. Humans have a concept called rules of war. The Geneva Conventions, the laws of armed conflict. Documents that specifically prohibit certain weapons and tactics." "That sounds civilized," someone offered hopefully. "Think about what it means," Zixatheta replied. "They needed rules to stop themselves from using biological weapons, chemical weapons, targeting civilians, torturing prisoners. They had to write down don't do these things because without those rules they would do them. They've weaponized diseases, poisoned water supplies, burned entire cities with their inhabitants inside. And then they decided that was going too far and made rules against it." The display showed human military academies, where officers studied thousands of years of warfare, analyzing every battle, every tactic, every weapon. They have institutions dedicated solely to studying war. They simulate conflicts constantly, playing what they call war games to prepare for every possibility. Their entertainment includes countless stories about war. They've been preparing for galactic warfare since before they knew other species existed. Admiral Chen spoke again. "We don't want war. We've seen what total war looks like, and it's hell. But if you force us to fight, we won't fight by your rules. We'll fight by ours, and our rules are very simple. Survive at any cost, win by any means, and make sure the enemy never threatens us again." Sub-Admiral Krenvar found his voice. "You could have destroyed our entire fleet. Why did you accept surrender?" For the first time Chen smiled, though it didn't reach his eyes. "Because humans have learned that sometimes the best victory is the one that prevents the next war. Your surviving ships will tell others what happened here. The message will spread. Humans prefer peace, but we're very, very good at war." The council deliberated for hours. In the end, they reached a decision that would shape galactic politics for millennia. Humanity would be granted full membership in the Galactic Council, their claim to the Nexus mining station upheld. But more importantly, a new protocol was established. Human space was to be respected. Their colonies were not to be threatened. Their ships were to be given wide berth, not out of fear alone, but from understanding. The galaxy had developed ritualized warfare as a means of conflict resolution, with minimal casualties and maximum honor. Humans had developed total warfare as a means of species survival, with maximum casualties and zero honor. They were fundamentally incompatible philosophies. As the assembly dispersed, Councillor Vexara approached Admiral Chen. "Do your people really prefer peace?" Chen considered the question. "We have a saying, if you want peace, prepare for war. We've been preparing for war our entire existence. Maybe now, finally, we can have peace." "And if someone breaks that peace?" Chen's expression hardened. "Then they'll learn why humans needed rules to limit ourselves in warfare. And they'll wish we still followed them." The Wolverine left the Nexus mining station 3 days later, its hull scarred but functional, a lone guardian returning to human space. Behind it, the station began operations under human control, its tritium flowing to human colonies that were rapidly militarizing. The galaxy had learned a valuable lesson. They thought they knew battle. They had developed elegant weapons and honorable combat traditions. They fought wars like civilized beings, with rules and restrictions and careful diplomatic protocols. But humans knew war, real war. The kind that ended with one side utterly destroyed and the other wondering if survival was worth the cost. And everyone who witnessed the Battle of Nexus Station understood one thing with crystal clarity. It was better to be humanity's friend than to remind them why they'd gotten so good at killing. The age of civilized warfare was over. The humans had arrived.